Hunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here. I have a mustache today, and it's time for a review of the sophomore studio album from the Chainsmokers, Sick Boy. The Chainsmokers are an EDM duo hailing from the great Northeast United States, comprised of Alex Paul and Andrew Taggart. As many of you might already know, Taggart and I come from a very similar background. In fact, I spent a lot of time in his hometown of Freeport, Maine growing up, mostly on shopping outlet trips with my mom that I didn't really care for, but still cool nonetheless. I personally found out about the Chainsmokers back when they were picking up steam in 2013 when they remixed Take Me Home by Cash Cash. I remember when #Selfie came out, and I remember at the time of its release I actually thought it was pretty hilarious. I liked the comedic value of the song itself, and I think the irony of it becoming as big as it did was really funny too. The fact that the Chainsmokers didn't take themselves all that seriously as an act was attractive to me, and I followed them into the next phase of their career gladly. The thing is, as time moved on, the Chainsmokers got more serious about their music, their tunes got a little bit more commercially viable, simultaneously becoming a lot more simplistic and repetitive, and things took such a quick nosedive that I honestly thought the Chainsmokers were trolling everyone. In my opinion, and I'm sure this is the opinion of many others, the duo hit rock bottom in 2017 with the release of their debut album, Memories Do Not Open, an album that, commercially speaking, was actually very successful, but critically speaking was not. Now, I'm not a Chainsmokers hater by any stretch, and I even thought there were a couple decent cuts on that record, but overall it was just not a great project. Containing some of the duo's most one-dimensional writing, rushed-out productions, and lackluster instrumentals they put out in their career. There were honestly worse projects that came out that year though, and there were even a couple albums that I rated lower than Memories Do Not Open. I'm obviously not going to advocate for the album because I still don't think it's all that good, but I think it came under more fire than it probably deserved just because people had a lot of pent-up annoyance at the Chainsmokers for how big of a hit the ridiculously simplistic Closer with Halsey was. I've never completely denounced the Chainsmokers. I actually do still consider myself to be a fan of theirs, largely because they're just two guys who are living out their dreams, plus they have used their platform to continuously push more underground and talented artists. They also recruited one of my favorite drummers for their live sets, so I kind of feel like I have to like them. Flash forward to January 2018 though, the Chainsmokers put out Sick Boy, the title track off their second studio album, showcasing an entirely new sonic direction and sound, though to this day I do think the song sounds very 21 Pilots-esque. When I first heard the song, I honestly didn't really like it all that much. I thought Taggart's fake English accent was ridiculous, and I thought the song's lyrics were trying way too hard to be deep, though I did think the song's instrumental was awesome and a great change in pace for the Chainsmokers, a very different, darker sound. The picture that the Chainsmokers were trying to paint with Sick Boy became abundantly more clear to me when they put out singles like You Owe Me and Everybody Hates Me. The songs were all very introspective and reflective of the Chainsmokers' experiences of the last year prior of their lives and the backlash that Memories Do Not Open received. It was a huge change in pace, and I feel a solid step in the right direction for the duo. Very different from the carefree goofball Chainsmokers that I grew to love, but certainly better than the bland pop Chainsmokers that dominated 2016 and 2017. The duo subsequently released the Sick Boy EP, which honestly I liked a lot. I even considered it for honorable mentions for EPs of 2018. Might even consider it my favorite project they've done to date. It's definitely the most cohesive and thematic. I would have been perfectly happy had the Chainsmokers just stopped there and continued on with the next phase of their career, but I guess the Chainsmokers weren't happy with that and wanted to pursue the album format once again. Since I had liked those first three singles so much, I was pretty confident that I was going to be happy with the album, but I was still worried considering how quickly they announced it after Memories Do Not Open, an album that I already thought sounded extremely rushed. I was utterly confused confused when the months following the EP were filled with single after single in a range of different sounds, from electropop songs that sounded like they could have very well been B-sides off the Memories Do Not Open album, to hybrid trap bangers done in collaboration with Azar and Nightmare. As soon as I thought I knew how this album was going to turn out, the duo would drop another single that would completely change my mind, and fittingly, when Sick Boy the album finally came out in December, I was just as confused. While it's easy to take the songs in this album one by one and say, hey, this is definitely a lot better than Memories Do Not Open, which it is, don't get me wrong, there's no doubt about that. Sick Boy is also very messy, and I'm not even sure it deserves the album classification. It's more like a compilation. Since every single track on this album, with the exception of Hope, was released as a single prior to the album's release, the full track list almost seems like somebody just hit shuffle on a playlist of all the 2018 Chainsmokers singles. The fact that the Chainsmokers even decided to call this album Sick Boy doesn't really make all that much sense, because the only songs that carry that Sick Boy theme and message are really only found on the songs that were on the EP. A much larger chunk of this album focuses on making minuscule improvements to the sound of Memories Do Not Open, with electropop tracks that for the most part are still very simple and one-dimensional. Sure, the production sounds a little less rushed this time around, and Taggart's vocal performances and songwriting seems to have improved marginally. There's definitely not a song here as bad or as cringeworthy as She Wants to Fuck Up Every Night. But at the same time, This Feeling and Beach House aren't really doing much for me. Side Effects is probably my favorite of this bunch, and in my opinion, one of the best tunes that Emily Warren has been featured on. It's an absolute bop, ridiculously catchy. It's got this kind of funky groove that just keeps me captivated throughout the entirety of the song and just makes me want to dance. Don't really care for the bridge of the song all that much, but that's really my only complaint about it. Hope featuring Winona Oak is also a pretty decent cut. Takes on a little bit more of that bright dance hall style. It actually reminds me a lot of Elohim's collaboration with Weathen. I also love the vocoder harmonies in the pre-chorus of this song. I think they sound great. Then of course we've got the two hybrid trap tracks that come in toward the end of the album with Azar and Nightmare. I honestly thought that these songs would be accompanied by more like them, considering I know the Chainsmokers have a lot of collaborations in the works with different bass music producers. I'm honestly not really in love with either of these songs, though the definite standout for me is Save Yourself. Not to say that I thought Siren was absolutely terrible or anything, but to me the vocal appearance from Drew sounds more like filler, sounds more like a top line than anything. Also just not really a fan of that rooster-like lead that's used in the drops. Though I will say the orchestral outro of this song is probably one of my favorite moments on the entire album. On Save Yourself, the vocals sound a little bit less top-liney to me, but definitely fit in that same category of like, it doesn't quite fit. And the drops are definitely a bit dirtier, I think especially thanks to Nightmare, who I know to be a pretty great sound designer. Though I would say this is one of my favorite cuts from the album, I do think it is a very strange closer. I think it would have made more sense to have, in fact, both of these hybrid trap tunes fall at the beginning of the album, because when you start with This Feeling and you end with Save Yourself, you kind of get through this album thinking like, what the heck just happened? Honestly, I think that these 10 tracks would have made a lot more sense if they were divided, maybe into their own respective thematic EPs like Sick Boy was. And while I'm on that topic, I may as well add that the first 3 singles off this album are still by and large my favorites. I just think I would have been able to appreciate these songs more if the electropop tracks would have ended up on their own EP, and you know, maybe they put a bass music EP down the road, but together these 10 songs just don't make all that much sense, and the track ordering is even more confusing. But honestly, at the same time, this album does kind of perfectly illustrate where the Chainsmokers are right now as a group. If you watch a Chainsmokers live set, it is kind of a harsh mix between all 3 of these different styles, with them hopping back and forth between the pop songs, the heavy dubstep leaning songs, the EDM stuff. It's very scattered, and that's represented on this album pretty well. That being said, I still don't care for this all that much as a project, but I am willing to admit that individually these tracks do showcase a certain degree of improvement for the Chainsmokers. I have no idea where the Chainsmokers are going to go on their next project, and I think this album has definitely obscured that. Whatever the case is, let's just hope that the next project is more cohesive and thematic than this one is. For Sick Boy, I am feeling a strong 4.5 to a light 5 out of 10. As always, if you guys haven't listened to this album yet, I have the Spotify link down in the description below, and if you have listened to the album, make sure to let me know what you think down in the comments section. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes. I hope you guys enjoyed the review and the mustache, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.